Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Barbara Steger? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Barbara Steger was born on October 30, 1948, in Durham, North Carolina. She graduated from high school in 1967. Barbara went to college and dated a man named Larry Ford. The couple had sex the first time they were alone together, and they continued to date. They married on May 21, 1968, after Barbara became pregnant. Barbara dropped out of college, and in December 1968, had a son named Brian. In July 1974, Barbara had a second son named Jason. The marriage between Barbara and Larry was rocky. Barbara had an affair and started overspending. The couple separated, but eventually Larry pushed for them to get reunited. In 1978, after the couple had been married for almost 10 years and were living in High Point, North Carolina, Barbara claimed that Larry asked her to purchase a .25 caliber semi-automatic pistol for her protection. She was working as a real estate agent, and she claimed that people were following her home. Barbara was afraid for her safety. She purchased the pistol on March 21, 1978. That same day, Larry attended a martial arts class. According to Barbara, Larry had been kicked in the groin and was experiencing some pain. She was worried that if she and Larry slept in the same bed, she would accidentally roll over and hit him where he was injured. Seeking safety from the soporific groin strike, Barbara settled on the sofa downstairs to sleep. After she fell asleep, Barbara was awakened by a gunshot. This was just after midnight, now on March 22. Barbara went upstairs to investigate and found Larry gasping for air. She contacted emergency services at 12:36 a.m. When they arrived, they found that Larry was dead. The gun that Barbara had purchased earlier that day was lying on the bed next to him. The police investigated the shooting. They initially ruled that Larry had brought an end to his own life. After failing to find any gunshot residue on Larry's hands, the police changed their story. Now they believed that Larry must have dropped the gun, thereby leading to a magical discharge. The cause of death was changed to accidental. Barbara was cleared of any wrongdoing and benefited financially from Larry's death. She moved to Durham, North Carolina to start over. There, she met a man named Allison Russell Steger III, who went by the name Russ. He was a driver's ed teacher and a baseball coach at Durham High School. Russ was separated from his wife for only a few months when he started dating Barbara. It's not clear why Russ was separated from his wife, but Russ did have an affair during his marriage. This may have contributed to the separation. The relationship between Russ and Barbara started with a lot of intensity. It immediately involved a tremendous quantity of sexual activity. Russ was very pleased with the relationship. He told people that Barbara was, quote, wild in bed, unquote. Based on how his story turns out, Barbara may have preferred the term killer in bed. About 2 months after dating, the couple became engaged. They were married on March 17, 1979, one day after Russ's divorce was finalized. Russ adopted Barbara's 2 sons, and the family started a life together. Russ did not make a lot of money with his job at the high school. Barbara found a job as well, but she didn't have it for too long. She did, however, have the money from the death of her first husband, Larry Ford. Russ and Barbara went on a massive spending spree. They purchased new cars, a boat, and a beach house. They joined an exclusive country club. People who knew them wondered where all the money was coming from. Eventually, the couple had put themselves into a lot of debt and could not pay their bills. In addition, Barbara was hiding overdue bills from her husband. One day, he discovered them in a box and was shocked. The couple was forced to sell their beach house, to sell their boat, and they had to move into a smaller house. Barbara was also deceptive in other ways. She engaged in infidelity. On one occasion, Russ caught her in the act. Barbara blamed him for the affair, telling him that he did not show her enough affection. Even though Russ was devastated by discovering the affair, and Barbara did not take any accountability, Russ still wanted the relationship to work. It appeared as though there was nothing that Barbara could do to end the relationship with her husband. However, Barbara did manage to find a way, eventually. This takes me to the timeline of the crime. On February 1, 1988, at 6:08 a.m., Jason Stager called 911. He told the operator that his father had sustained a gunshot wound and that his mother told him to call for help. When emergency responders arrived, they found 40-year-old Russell Stager in his bed. He was lying on his left side on the right side of the bed. His eyes were rolled back in his head, but he was still breathing. There was blood all over the bed. It was clear that Russ had sustained a massive head wound. As paramedics were attending to Russ, they found a Beretta .25 caliber pistol under his pillow. Immediately after the investigators arrived, Barbara told them that she had pulled the pistol out from underneath Russ's pillow, and it unexpectedly discharged. Barbara claimed that Russ believed burglaries were occurring in the area and slept with the gun under his pillow. As the paramedics were attending to Russ, Barbara's behavior became disruptive and erratic. She was offering a lot of unhelpful information and represented a distraction to the paramedics. She kept saying things like, "I'm scared of these things. I wish he wouldn't have these things under there. I'm scared of guns. And guns are not safe." The police said that Barbara was repeating those phrases almost as if they represented some type of chant. The officers removed Barbara from the bedroom. Russ was taken to the hospital, but he died 6 hours later. The police interviewed Barbara at length and even had her perform a reenactment of the shooting. This is what Barbara told them. On the day Russ died, she woke up at around 6 a.m. She was on the left side of the bed, and Russ was on the right side. Barbara stretched out on her stomach. As her right hand reached under Russ's pillow, she felt something hard. She realized it was a gun. Barbara was upset at her husband because he promised never to sleep with the pistol under his pillow again. She was surprised to find it there. She decided to remove the pistol in order to keep everyone safe. After pulling the gun out from under the pillow, she dragged the gun across the bed as she was attempting to climb out of the bed. This is when the pistol discharged. She was not standing up, and she was not holding the gun in the air. Initially, the police believed Barbara's story, but then they became suspicious after finding out about how her first husband was shot and killed in a similar way. The weapon involved in Larry's death was a .25 caliber semi-automatic pistol, which was found in the bed. These facts didn't seem like a coincidence. Barbara was charged with murder. She was convicted and sentenced to death in August 1989. After the death sentence was overturned on appeal, Barbara received a sentence of life in prison with the possibility of parole. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. During the marriage to Russ, Barbara had a lot of problems telling the truth. For example, she engaged in infidelity. She incurred significant debt without telling her husband. She forged his name on loan applications and on a motor vehicle title. And in order to keep him from finding out about her spending activity, she had her bills mailed to her parents' home. If Russ had not died, he would have soon discovered that they were in deep trouble financially. Item number 2. Barbara wrote a manuscript titled Untimely Death. It was about the death of her first husband, Larry Ford. In the book, she complained that people suspected her involvement. She submitted the manuscript to a publisher and was rejected. Barbara took the publisher's logo from the rejection letter and created an acceptance letter offering her a large cash advance. She used this letter to get a loan from a bank. Item number 3. When Barbara was young, her parents were active in the Baptist church. Barbara was exposed to a strict religious belief system. She attended church services, prayer meetings, revivals, gospel singing events, and vacation Bible school. She was taught that sexual activity leads to burning in hell. Sexual fantasies would also lead to damnation. Really, any type of sexual desire would result in eternal exposure to unreasonably high temperatures. Barbara may have had trouble resolving her desire for sex with her desire to avoid excessively warm climates. Item number 4. When Barbara was younger, she thought of herself as unattractive. She was shy, her glasses had a thick frame, and she thought that she looked like a cartoon character. She asked her friends for tips on how to look more attractive and became fixated on capturing the attention of young men. After Barbara was convicted, she received a mental health evaluation. She denied being mistreated when she was younger, but said that she was overprotected by her family. A mental health clinician found that Barbara was isolated, insecure, immature, excessively introspective, and prone to focus on negative characteristics. She was full of self-doubt and was afraid of being abandoned by romantic interests. Barbara did not have much need for emotional closeness and only maintained superficial relationships. She did not have any true interest in other people. Despite all these various characteristics, the clinician did not believe that Barbara had a personality disorder. Item number 5. As an adult, Barbara acted on her strong sex drive. Her lovers described her as promiscuous and incredibly aggressive. They said she was like a machine. They suggested that she wanted to have sex all night long and was impossible to satisfy. There's this sense that Barbara was always looking for approval. She equated sex with love. The problem for Barbara was this: the approval of just one lover was never enough. This led to Barbara engaging in multiple sexual relationships, looking for something that she was never really going to be able to find. In one sense, the only relationship Barbara was ever truly excited about was the next one. Item number 6. In December 1988, a student from the high school, where Russ had worked before he was killed, found a cassette tape under one of the stalls in the school locker room. This was about 20 feet from Russ's office. The student took the tape home and gave it to his mother. It sat on her dresser until April 1989, when she decided to listen to it. She recognized the voice on the tape as belonging to Russ. He had made the recording on January 29, 1988, 3 days before he died. In this recording, Russ offered an account of how he discovered Barbara's affair. He talked about how he was suspicious regarding Larry's death, and he said that on 2 occasions, Barbara woke him up during the early morning hours and tried to give him sleeping medication. He thought this was odd because he was asleep, so here she was waking him up in order to help him to get to sleep. This didn't make sense to Russ. He thought that perhaps Barbara was up to no good. It was clear that Russ knew that Barbara was dangerous, yet he stayed with her. Similarly, her first husband, Larry, knew that Barbara was destructive and toxic, but he desperately wanted to be with her. In both cases, the men had a desire to keep their families together, and they did not want to cut off their access to sex. Now moving to the last item, number 7. Some people believe that Barbara shot Russ by accident. Was Barbara actually guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that Barbara was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Even though she was never charged in connection with Larry Ford's death, the facts of that case make Barbara look guilty. What are the chances that 2 husbands would just happen to die in essentially the exact same way? Barbara had a substantial financial incentive to murder Russ. During her marriage to Russ, Barbara engaged in infidelity and numerous financial indiscretions. She kept secrets from her husband, and her spending behavior was about to get exposed when he was killed. According to Barbara's story, she is the one who shot and killed her husband, Russ. She claimed it was an accident, but she admitted that the gun was in her hand when it discharged. The pistol used in the killing had a 4.5-pound trigger pull. It did not fire by accident. It fired because Barbara pulled the trigger. In addition, the path of the bullet through Russ's head was consistent with him being shot from above. yet Barbara said that the gun was on the bed when it discharged. Russ made a secret recording where he expressed concerns about Barbara's behavior. Moving to the exculpatory factors, it's possible that Barbara put her finger into the trigger guard and squeezed the trigger when she was trying to pick up the pistol, like she did not realize what caused the gun to fire, despite having fired guns before. That's pretty much it for exculpatory factors. When considering all the evidence, do I think that Barbara is guilty of murder? Yes, I believe she is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Really, she's guilty beyond almost any doubt. Here's what I think happened in this case. This is just a theory, my opinion. Barbara was pressured to feel shame about her desires when she was young. When she became older, she cut loose in an effort to fulfill her desires, not just as far as sex, but also with spending money. Barbara believed that people were just objects. People were only there to help her to get what she wanted. I think it's likely that she murdered Larry Ford, probably because he was more useful to her dead. The same thing happened with Russ. Of all the deception that Barbara perpetrated, her most successful was convincing her lovers that they were in a loving and caring relationship with her. Just as was the case with Barbara, she manipulated her partners into confusing sex with love. Barbara's lovers suggested that her sexual performance took their breath away. Unfortunately, Barbara had a literal interpretation about how to live up to this standard. Those are my thoughts in the case of Barbara Steger. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.